Good afternoon, my beautiful babes and babettes. I'm your resident active advocate, rapidly switching accents, and I'm a little bit ticked off because what happened last night on Capitol Hill in America was not okay. This is coming from the perspective of a Canadian, but I do have family down there, and it concerns me that their welfare may be at risk because of people going wild. Any American currently watching this video, please just listen, okay? Don't go into your party affiliation mode. I don't care what party you support. I don't care what leader you support. I don't care, okay? Don't make this an us versus them kind of issue, because a nation divided will fall, of course. Obviously, it's happened a million times. Over and over again throughout the course of history. Empires collapse internally, not externally, for the most part. There will be external factors, yes, but mostly it's internal strife. And that's what's happening in America right now. America's not an empire as such, although I think some people want it to be. But I don't like imperialism. I don't do imperialism. So, in terms of just the inter-nation relationships, please be nice to one another. By which I mean, do not go and get your gun and use this as an excuse to harm other people around you. You should be protecting the people around you. They're your neighbors, they're your friends, they're your enemies. They're all the people who make life worthwhile. Because without the good, we can't have the bad. Without the bad, we can't have the good. We need this contrast. We can't just wipe it out and expect it, A, to stay gone, but expect it not to matter when we do. When, quote, we are the only people left, what do, quote, we start to do? Cannibalize each other. Because the, quote, we gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in range. All right? That's not what I want to see happen in this world. God knows, not in my lifetime. Not in anyone's lifetime. We deserve better than that. And I think that as a species, we're smarter than that. So please be peaceful. Please be, amenable to the change that's going to happen in your country within the next few weeks. And even if you don't support Joe Biden being president, don't go picking up your torch and pitchforks over it. All right? And Democrats, I know you don't support Trump, neither do I, but don't go picking up your torch and pitchforks over it. You can't keep fighting each other because it's not going to last. It's all just going to go up in flames, and nobody wants that. Come on, get along. We're grown-ups here, not children. Even if we're children are more peaceful than adults a lot of the time because they have smaller things to fight over. So that's my PSA directed at my American audience members. But what I actually am here to talk about is the book called A Different Life by Lois Keith. Spoiler warning. So, bit of a sharp segue from that topic of discussion. But in this book, there is an aspect of people looking for someone to blame. Because in this book, Libby, the main character, she goes to swim in the sea with her classmates, and she gets sick from some unknown cause. Her father throughout the book keeps looking for some cause. Why did my daughter get as sick as she did? And what happens with Libby is that she loses her ability to walk. So she is from then on a wheelchair user. And initially her symptoms don't seem that bad. I mean, she's got a high fever and nausea and all this crazy stuff going on, but her family thinks maybe it's just a really bad passing flu, but then it doesn't pass. It gets worse and worse and worse, and they have to hospitalize her. So when Libby comes round and finds that she's unable to walk, she has to relearn how to do quite a lot of different things. This is the main side effect, at least on the person, for inheriting a disability in your lifetime, or acquiring, rather, a disability in your lifetime, rather than being born with one. So, acquired disability can actually be harder to deal with than congenital disability, which are disabilities that you acquire or are born with, acquired before the age of 4, but are otherwise born with. For example, I'm congenitally visually impaired. I was born this way, okay? But Libby also has a decently supportive social network. I mean, her father's going a little bit, shall we say, off the rails about this because he can't find someone to blame. He's looking and looking and looking for someone to blame just so that, I don't know if he's looking for satisfaction for Libby or for himself. Because one of the main narratives that is still present in our society is the quote moral model. But while we do not lay blame as much on the individual anymore for them having a disability, or on the actual literal sins of the father of the family line, we tend to want to lay blame on someone if a person comes down with an illness that causes them a permanent disability. But, and not to plug my own material, but as I covered in my video, The Fear of Disability, sometimes these things happen for no reason at all. If you can't put your finger on a thing, it's going to leave you dissatisfied, I know. But a lot of the time, because the universe does not owe us an explanation, a lot of the time, these things can happen for no reason at all, or a reason that is too far above our heads to understand with our current technology and our current knowledge. And that, as I say, is a very dissatisfying thing when you and your family and your social network are all going through the same kind of trauma together. And I'm not in any way going to downplay the effects, the negative effects of acquiring a disability in your life. At the same time, however, people who actually do have supportive networks can get through this thing so much more easily than people who do not. So, being an active advocate, I would like to advocate more for supporting the person in need and for supporting one another, because we all know that all of us are going to be in need if someone we love comes down with an illness that gives them an acquired disability. And I've seen this happen in real life, okay? Um, but we need one another as human beings. And while we may look for someone to blame, it is more important in my eyes to look for someone to support, for someone to love, for someone to help. If it's the person with the acquired disability, awesome. If you're not emotionally prepared to deal with that, okay, that's fine. But support yourself, support the people in your network, and gradually work your way in, because that person may seem to be at the center of the action, but all of that action covers all of these people in all these different strata. She has a younger brother, she has parents, she has friends, she has teachers, she has a potential boyfriend, but that never really blossoms into anything in the book, which I think is a bit of a cop out because it's like everything sort of remains status quo. One of her friends gets a little bit iffy in her relationship with her, but otherwise, everything else basically maintains the same status it had before she acquired the disability. And that to me is a bit of a treat, is a bit of a cheat, because that doesn't really happen in real life. But if this ever does happen to you in real life, because as I said in The Fear of Disability, this can happen to anyone at any time for any reason or for no reason. If this ever does end up happening to you, be supportive and allow yourself to be supported. That's also another important aspect of this. Because of the social narrative we have, people can sometimes get very insular and think it's their fault and grow depressed and anxious and worried all the time, and not allow themselves to be comforted by the people around them, and just try to shrug off what's going on in their own bodies or in their own minds, or any strata in which one can acquire a disability. But we as a social species cannot shut down to our own needs and demands and those of others as well. And sometimes the need and the demand is for someone to have someone else to love and support. So that's, I think, the basic conceit of this book. And I rather like this book. It's not perfect, but it is at least nuanced. So I definitely recommend it. A Different Life by Lois Keith. And hopefully this video is not too long for me to upload. I'm looking at you, YouTube. All right. Thank you for your lovely time and attention and participation. Be good to one another, kids. Waggling my finger. And I will see you tomorrow to cover another book. I can't remember which, but I have a list. Okay. Take care of yourselves. Bye. Mwah.